What is up, everybody? Bluebird here, and welcome back to Cipher Secret, and today we will be reading Chapter 40, Nothing to Hide. Archimicarus sighed as his grip tightened around Azaf's necklace. He could feel his brain cells dying one by one as he just stared at the necklace, as if it would confine himself and his dark secrets. He was alive. His child was alive. After all this time, he couldn't believe it. Archimicarus was sure Azaf would have been hunted down long ago for being a hybrid. A half-demon, a product of intercourse between a human and a demon, either by pastors or the peasants. It would have been his fate 15 years ago if he hadn't met her, the love of his life. Back then, Archimicarus believed the lie of demons not having any positive emotions towards anyone except themselves. But it was all changed when he met her. Alma was different. She was the only daughter of a kind of well-known pastor who owned a small church in the small town of Summerfield. The memories burned in the back of his mind. These flames refused to be extinguished, and they would not stop burning, and reminded him of the events that took place back then. Archimicarus gritted his teeth as he pressed his palm against the large wound to prevent the bleeding from worsening. His efforts were in vain, however, as more blood and magic escaped his fingers and spilled to the ground. "Fucking meat sacks, so weak," he whispered to no one but himself, as there was no one to hear his lament anyway. Archimicarus' wings and skin were in a bad shape as well. Many bones broken and feathers were lost, and his skin had various third and second degree burns, but they would heal a lot faster if they weren't vital to the body his spirit inhabited. Unlike the place where he had been stabbed, his heart, the place where he had chosen to guard his soul. He had gathered a lot of magic to create his body, and even though he could still manage to live if the physical body scummaged, he didn't want to lose it. It took too much effort to create another identical one. However, in normal circumstances, he would have healed himself easily, but the core of his being had been affected by holy water the pastor had thrown at him, which blocked his healing ability, and was slowly dissolving his heart, trying to reach his soul and dissolve it as well. Was this his fate? Was he going to die alone in the middle of a forest, all because of his curiosity? Lucifer was right in warning him about the dangers of humanity. Had he listened to the king, Archimicarus would not be in this situation. How did the humans even notice his presence? On Gravity Falls, he disguised himself pretty easily, mingling with the crowd, but the humans from Summerfield didn't seem to be as oblivious. All he could hear was silence, besides the small buzz in his head from the scuffle with the pastor. The only audible sounds were the birds flapping wings as they went back and forth with small twigs in their beaks to build new nests, the animals' growls and roars as they roamed the back of the forest, the buzzes of a swarm of bees gathering together in a hive, amidst the many other sounds that were characteristic of the forest. However, one thing didn't match. He could hear and feel footsteps that were not from animals. Theirs were soft and hardly discernible, but the footsteps were rushed and harsh. No animal would do this unless they were prey running from a predator. However, he could still distinguish the two sounds, and then he heard it. "Hello? Is someone here?" a voice asked from afar. Feeling his instincts tingling, Archimicarus positioned himself in the best fighting stance he could, preparing to use the last bits of magic he had to defend himself, even if that was the last thing he could do. He would die with dignity. Finally, the person whose voice belonged to was within view, and Archimicarus felt his muscles relaxing. The person was simply a girl who seemed to be no older than 18 years old. She didn't mean any harm, but he still couldn't let his guard down. Once the girl's eyes landed on the harmed demon, she immediately yelled, "Oh my, you're hurt!" Archimicarus sneered silently. Of course he was hurt. Any creatures with eyes and half a brain would notice. He tensed up once again while she extended her hand, attempting to touch him. "Let me help." "Stand back!" he bellowed, using his wings to appear more intimidating. His eyes flashed a bright green color, his pupils being nothing more than thin slits. His canines were showing. The voices of the enraged villagers were still audible in his memory. Their clamors of vengeance for the Lord and were louder than his own thoughts. He shouldn't trust humans. He couldn't. They were monsters with a thirst for blood of his race. "Do not touch me!" Archimicarus sneered as he took a step back once he felt the human approaching once more, ignoring his warnings, although he did not notice the rock behind him. He slipped, falling on his back. The girl let out a gasp as she scurried towards him. Now he was too weak to stop her. "You're one of them, aren't you?" she asked, checking his wound. His flesh was no longer smooth like it used to be, now being replaced with the decaying skin from the burns. She could tell it was due to holy water. Demons were extremely allergic to it. Archimicarus didn't respond. He didn't know how to, nor would his voice work. He was completely ashamed. Had this human girl had not been merciful enough not to kill him on the spot, since even a pocket knife would suffice him due to being how weak Due to him being too weak to counterattack or have a proper reaction, he would have been just another demon who died due to his own foolishness. Perhaps he should have heeded Lucifer's advice on spying on humans of Summerfield. The girl sighed, wiping sweat from her forehead, and grabbed his wrist. She had a very strong grasp for her size and delicate build. Don't worry, I'll take you home, and we can heal— No! Archimicarus protested with a hoarse voice, trying to free himself from her grasp. They'll kill me! They've attempted to do it once! I'm not risking it! Surely enough, the pastor and the people in the town he managed to inculcate were still around, and bringing back a demon they had just barely killed would do more harm than good for both sides. If the girl insisted with her plan, his demise was sealed. The girl let him go, but she didn't move. Archimicarus noticed she was fidgeting a little. Why would he do this? She questioned herself while analyzing the demon's body. He was in a pretty bad shape. Had he provoked any of the townspeople? That couldn't be. She felt his panic from afar. He was scared of them. A demon was scared of humans. It should have been the other way around, but her father managed to turn the tables. She couldn't decide whether that was good or not a few years before, but now she definitely knew her father wasn't doing the right thing, despite only wishing to protect the people of the city. My father wasn't always this way, she mumbled. But Archimicarus' sensitive and sharp ears could hear the heartbeat from a rat from far away. Your father? Archimicarus asked, dazed. They were very oblivious. There was a very obvious divergence of personalities between the two. I must take you to my house. I have an emergency kit there. It's not much, but it may help since you have a human body. A bit being a demon, she said. But if I can't take you to the village, what do I do? She asked herself. She was starting to have a headache. Archimicarus gave her the most serious look he could muster. Stand back. As much as she wanted to, the human didn't complain as she took a few steps back. She felt like the demon was trying to run away, but she was his only hope in getting better. Archimicarus closed his eyes and focused as much as he could. In a matter of seconds, a white, circular barrier rose from the ground around the two. With this barrier, I could protect myself, and in the time being, you can get the emergency kit, he explained. The girl was hypnotized by the shield. There were small stars embedded on the barrier, which made it even more alluring. She extended her hand to touch it. Don't! Archimicarus snapped. If you touch it, you'll die from shock. I put up a barrier for a reason. The girl mentally scolded herself for getting distracted. Hold up for a few minutes. It won't take long, she informed before taking off to exit the forest. Archimicarus gritted his teeth as his wounds seemed to only get worse every second. He would gladly accept that girl's help, as she seemed willing to help him. Archimicarus was taught by the adults around him to never trust a human with your life. He had no choice, however. All he could do was wait. Special ability? Dana asked, still slightly dazed from the stunt she had unwillingly pulled. Hey, Af, didn't you say something about that? Azaf nodded, feeling his mentor's eyes on him. He tensed. Oh, as I've already explained the subject, I suppose, Kinessi asked. All the apprentices nodded, and Azaf tensed up even more. He was sure his mentor could hear his accelerated heartbeat. He had no reason to be nervous, but his body wouldn't obey his commands to stop acting like he was. There was no avail in trying to hide it. Kinessi noticed his apprentice's sudden anxiety, so he looked away. Tell me, Dana, he turned to his sister's apprentice. What ability do you think you have? It was no surprise that Dana grinned, her imagination going wild with infinite possibilities. Maybe it was his imagination, but Kinessi was sure he heard Beatrice mutter, "Oh, Lord." Perhaps he ought to ignore her grumble. I can explode things, she yelled at the top of her lungs. Not quite, Beatrice told her. Damn, this sucks. I wanted to explode things. Well, I wanted to explode people too, but many things, like my homework. Maybe I'll have a decent excuse, Dana groaned. So, what ability do I have? Graviperium, Beatrice answered. Bless you, Dana retorted innocently while smiling. I won't bother answering you. I'm sure you'll just engage in stupid and childish behavior. Her mentor chilled between gritted teeth while crossing her arms. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Aren't you technically answering her already? He immediately regretted pointing that out as Beatrice glared daggers at him. Dipper shivered. This night wasn't going to go well at all. Don't outsmart me, young boy, Beatrice chastised. Let's keep the peace, guys. We can all kill each other tomorrow during the next lesson. It'll be even better, Bill piped up. Besides, we need the apprentices to be kind of alive to teach them stuff, even though we can call Jack in case they suddenly drop dead. He told his siblings right after, looking at his brother. Hey, Key, since you're the smartass, go on and explain what Graviperium is. Graviperium is a very dangerous, but useful ability. Kinessi began to explain, ignoring the nickname given to him by Bill. It allows the user to control the gravity of an object or multiple ones, depending on the power, either minimizing it or enhancing it. In Dana's case, unbeknownst to her, she altered the gravity of the plate, consequently making it to cave under the pressure and explode. Everyone looked at the remains of the plate, along with the smashed food. There was food everywhere, especially on the walls. Tomorrow, after training your flying seals once more, we'll start preparations to find your special abilities. Of course, we might not discover them all right away, since it takes some effort to find them. Dana was very lucky for finding hers right away. Okay, one question. Dipper humbly raised his hand. What's your special abilities? Oh, I was going to ask that too, Daniel added. Bill snorted with an amused look. Why does it matter? Why does it not matter? Azef questioned. Unless you're trying to hide something from us, then you ought to answer. This kid's using reverse logic on us. Beatrice leaned forward and whispered to Kinessi. I think we should eliminate him, she said a little louder. She was joking, obviously, but her voice tone was serious and plain. Beatrice was merely trying to yank a reaction out of him. Surprisingly, Azef didn't seem to have been fooled. I can see the future. I'll see it coming. He gave a smirk. Beatrice scowled. We do not have special abilities, Kinessi inverted, not wishing for things to get out of hand. Our omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence are our special abilities, even if they do not exactly count. He stared inside of Azef's green eyes. Special abilities can either help or bother you. Choose which one it is, and we'll gladly remove it for you. They cannot be given back or replaced, however, so choose wisely. He then nodded as the entrance to the room opened. You're dismissed, he said, waving his hands for them dismissively. The four apprentices exchanged confused glances before heading towards the door hesitantly. They were all about to exit when Kinesi's voice was heard once more. One more thing, he said calmly. Near your room there are 2 bathrooms and extra clothes. Take a shower and change your attire. Before you question us, the clothes are genderless but have different colors. I'm sure you'll know which colors belong to each of you. Now you can go. The 4 children complied. That went very well, Daniel said sarcastically once they were out of their mentor's sights. Kinessi said something about removing special abilities, Dipper commented, putting a hand on his chin. Is that possible? I thought these abilities were attached to you, like part of your spirit or something. Azef shook his head. I didn't understand either, he said, but I don't think I want to go back and question it. I think I have a headache, Dana complained, holding her forehead. Also, I'm covered in food. That would have been my dream a few days ago, but this sucks. They all stopped in front of the door to their room. I'm taking a shower first, she announced, scurrying towards the bathroom and left and closed the door behind her. She analyzed the bathroom quickly. The walls were painted in white, the ceiling and the floor, but there were lots of space left. There was a shower near the toilet and faucet. There was a bunch of folded clothes on a wardrobe near the door, which also made her question why there was a wardrobe on the bathroom of all places. The pleasant smell of lavender evaded her nostrils as she began undressing. At least she would be clean for tomorrow's lesson. Not that she was looking forward to it. Dipper let out a sigh of relief. He felt a lot lighter now. His old, dirty, ripped clothes were now replaced with fresh, clean ones. The fabric was soft and colored in gold. His attire was compressed of a long-sleeved shirt and ambient comfortable pants. Dipper let out a low chuckle. The mentors really thought this through. While his attire was completely yellow, Azef was pink, and the twins were blue. Each apprentice was wearing clothes to their mentor's colors. Now he understood what Kinessi meant. Feeling his muscles relaxing, Dipper allowed himself to smile and lean against the wall on the bottom bunk bed. Something he hadn't done for a while, especially due to all the disastrous things that had been happening from the first days they stepped into the nightmare realm. Maybe this trip wasn't so bad as I previously thought, Dipper told himself. Then he heard a laugh in the back of his mind, and he jumped. Letting your guard down easily already, little brother. Don't worry. Dipper bit his lip and closed his eyes as he tried to relax, but his heart continued beating as quickly as a rat's. He could feel the creature's smirk. It seemed to always know how to distress him, how to make him crumble under his gaze. Dipper knew he didn't want to go to sleep that night. The fun has just begun.